What's happening, everybody, and how the hell might y'all be doing out there? Thanks for tuning in to the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is drummer, author, vintage drum specialist, and owner of the amazing Revival Drum Shop in Portland, Oregon. And that would, of course, be Jose Medeles. Jose and I get into the 12-year history of the shop, the impetus for him opening up one of 4 locations throughout its history, vintage drum collections, the peaks and valleys, and everything in between, so I hope y'all dig it. Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcast, to name a few. Feel free to check out any of the previous 200-plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, and/or a positive review. The support is appreciated. Shout out to my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. If you're looking to release some vinyl for your project, hit them up at neworleansrecordpress.com, where you can check out all the electroplating, mastering, design, packaging, vinyl coloring options, and a whole lot more. They even got a real-time quote generator for you to keep tabs on everything. They also print 12 and 7-inch records at 150 and 180 gram variants, and they do small runs of 100 and larger runs up into the thousands. So hit them up, and that's neworleansrecordpress.com. Lastly, do please keep tabs on artist live streams, lessons, tutorials, and masterclasses from your favorite musicians, merch or physical releases that are for sale, as well as websites like saveourstages.com that are very much looking to help out struggling venues in these tough times. So here we go, Jose Medeles, Revival Drums, The Stoic Drummer, which, by the way, is a great book if you haven't gotten it yet, so get your hands on it. Here we go, Crash, Bang, Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, Jose Medeles, owner of Revival Drum Shop, author of The Stoic Drummer, great book that I've been paging through. No shortage of great insights and quotes and mantras and all sorts of stuff. And I would say a vintage drum specialist, I believe, as well. So how are you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, still acclimating to a new place. We moved from New York to Utah after being in New York for 15 years. So still just getting used to a different place, mountains, cars, all sorts of different things that just weren't really happening in New York. So I have a drum room. I can play drums in the house now, which rules.
Congratulations. It sounds like paradise.
It's been pretty good, man. It's nice to get away from people. That was one of the goals for getting out here. I was like, if I can get on my bike and just go places and not actually see other human beings, that would be a goal of mine. And I've been able to do that thus far. So that's been nice, just to not see people.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. There's nothing better than living a deliberate life. So good on you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm a fan of the shop. I was able to go out there about 4 years ago, I believe it was, and really enjoyed it. I remember thinking whoever's sort of curating these drums and the vibe of the whole place certainly seems like an interesting person and seems to know what they're doing, because I could spend days in there looking and playing drums would be even that much more amazing. It'd be like the Locked in the Museum movie, or one of those movies. I think Robin Williams was in it or something. I would do that version, but I would be locked in Revival Drums, and I could just play drums all the time.
That's nice. We have had people that volunteered to do security and throw out a cot and just hang out all night. So, yeah. But thank you for the kind words, and it's definitely a team effort. I have an amazing crew. And so, yeah, thank you for appreciating what we do.
Absolutely, man. Well, I know as a business owner, I would imagine, and I don't need to go out on too much of a limb here to say 2020 might have been a trying year, but how was it getting through 2020, speaking of which?
It's been, to say the least, a eye-opener. We through this, we've been able to survive, which is fantastic. And through it, we've, just like everyone else, we've, learned to really celebrate the good. We definitely embrace the slowness, and we learn to, welcome uncertainty more than ever.
Yeah.
And it's another test, of course, a big test. It just helps you focus on really what's important. And I definitely learned more than ever to embrace nuance, which is really exciting. So
yeah,
we've been able to, to do our thing and to continue to serve our community, or the drummers, locally and in the U.S. and all over the world still, and be able to keep it together and, kind of be here for for each other. And so, yeah, I know that was a long answer, but we've been doing fine, and the support from the community has been nothing but fantastic, and I feel so fortunate.
Nice, man. Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, y'all started in '09, so what this year would be 12 years that it's been open?
Yes. Revival is ready to turn into a teenager.
Wow.
And it's acting everything like a teenager, would. I have a 14-year-old,
Oh,
so
wow.
I know exactly what's going on. But yeah, it's that in itself. And I think that's probably like 112 years old in drum shop years.
For real. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an amazing journey and odyssey, and I've learned so much about people and about myself. And yeah, man, 12 years. That's a long time.
When you think back to those 12 years ago, I know obviously you played with the Breeders in sort of two different time frames, the second of which from looking at the timeline, looks like you also had opened a drum shop at that point. So we'll have to talk sort of about balancing the drum shop with being in the Breeders as well. But I guess when you sort of venture back to 12 years ago, where were you at in life? And, one of the questions that potential business owners ask themselves is, what would you be providing that may not be happening in your environment? And what would you do differently that would appeal to customers? So going back to the origins of this, what was the impetus for you even taking the plunge into opening up a drum shop in the first place?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. The initial idea was to get off the road so I could be a more present father, a more present husband. The Breeders were, slowly fading away with Kim doing the Pixies. Mm-hmm. And so my goal was to, literally stay home, because my dad wasn't present and I didn't want to do that with Ryder. Mm-hmm. And I already had almost missed, 2 years of his life by touring. And it was just this kind of perfect moment to do that. And just to back it up a little bit, we were living in Los Angeles before this. I lived in LA for 16 years. Mm-hmm. And so once we kind of saw the writing on the wall of me kind of getting out of the circus of touring and studio stuff, all that, we sold our house in Los Angeles and moved to Portland. Mm. And just to back it up a little bit, when I lived in LA, before I joined the Breeders, I was working at the professional drum shop in Los Angeles there, the iconic, drum shop, where I essentially learned the importance of community and obviously serving drummers. And was lucky enough to, not only get, paid to work at the pro drum shop, to help out Elvin Jones and James Gadsden and DJ Bonebrake. And it's like my heroes would walk through the door, Pete Thomas. Mm-hmm. Not only did I get, was able to hang out there, to serve drummers and to make fun of Jerry all day. I consider those guys like my uncles, Stan and Jerry. I learned so much. So I started working there after I stopped playing drums essentially in 22 Jacks. I was playing in a band, and I was kind of during my pop punk years where I did a tour with Face to Face with 22 Jacks. And then the singer decided not to do 22 Jacks, and I was really devastated. And it was the first time I played with Joey Ramone was because I was in 22 Jacks. It was the Jacks was one of Joey's favorite bands. So
nice.
So I said, that's it. I'm done playing drums. And I asked Stan if they needed help. And he goes, actually, we do if you want to come in on Saturday. So I started working at Pro Drum. And during my time there, probably a year or so, I started to fall back in love with drumming. Mm-hmm. So, and I would be able to have these real life conversations with Jim Keltner and with, and with just kind of obviously friends in general, just that would come in. And it was really great. Like, I loved it when I was talking with, I believe it was DJ Bonebrake, where I said, yeah, man, I was like really disillusioned with playing. It was such a bummer. Mm-hmm. It's like, touring's kind of lame, and I dedicate all this time to a band. And he's all like, well, yeah, that happens all of the time. What are you talking about? Of course you're going to And I was like, oh my gosh, oh really? So I started to like I said, get back into the books, and fall back in love with drumming. So boom. So there we are. Then I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough. Then when I was ready to join a band, my first call was the Breeders. So I got the gig, and that kind of changed everything for me for a long time. So thanks for listening to all of that. But yeah, Pro Drum, amazing time in my life. One of the best experiences I've ever had. And I really love those guys. And like I said, I consider them family. So I'm hoping that I'm taking some of what they've been able to do and just kind of, really incorporate that into what Revival has done and is doing. So, okay, so boom. So fast forward, we moved to Portland, two Penske trucks, the 30-foot ones. One is our house. One is my drum collection. Because I was buying drums when I couldn't afford them. So when I joined the Breeders, I would travel with empty road cases. I would go and buy, because I was convinced I was going to be the next Jim Keltner, because I was doing some cool stuff, doing records with Ben Harper and stuff like that, and, Rocco De Luca. But sadly that didn't happen. But so it was time to get out of Los Angeles. So we moved here, and the balance of wanting to stay home and going out on the road, was really starting to weigh on me. And I was the only one in the band that had a baby with the Breeders. So when I would be like, man, do we really have to go to Europe for 2 months? And they're like, well, yeah, that's what we do, man. We didn't have a baby, in the best way.
Sure.
I love Tim and Kelly, and and I consider obviously them still family. So here I was figuring out what I was going to do for the future.
Yeah.
And so I started to fill out applications for a local grocery store. I was totally ready to join civilian life.
Yeah.
I've toured the world, endorsements, like played on a ton of records. I kind of did it, like in my mind, TV, it was such an amazing journey where I'm like, man, I'm okay with this. I'll just get a little drum set and set it up in the garage and play along to Zeppelin, and I'm good. I'm totally fine. And I just want to be home. I want to see my son, grow, and I want to be here and support and be with my wife, who I love so much. And so it was an easy plan. It was like, okay, cool. And then it was Allison who said, man, it's kind of a shame you're just kind of walking away, because you really love drums.
Right.
And you really, really love to play. I go, yeah, but I don't want to go on tour. And I really can't work at any of the shops around here, because one was kind of like Guitar Center light,
right.
And the other one was like, a couple quick stories. Like I was looking at like a bass drum that they had put out on the floor, and the guy like whizzes by and goes, not for sale. I'm like, dude, like, I think I have like 6 of these, just kind of that vibe. And then another time I went there, I asked him if they had Modern Drummer, because James Gadsden was on the cover. And the guy didn't even look up, and he's like, we don't carry Modern Drummer. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it was just this like, man, what is it like with this place? Like,
totally.
Like very seldom did I want to go like, are you like, what the fuck's your problem?
Totally.
So, with that, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe they could use a cool little drum shop here.
Yeah.
So that all started to kind of come together, because if there was a drum shop like Revival here, obviously I wouldn't have started Revival.
Yeah.
I would really try to work at it. So I was like, man, maybe it could work. And so I found, a little place. It was 350 square feet, and it was close enough to my house where I could walk. And essentially I opened it, with my stock. I had so many drums, it was ridiculous. And but the place was so small. There's probably some pictures, in the online, but I think it was the smallest drum shop in the world. I think I jokingly would say that, but I think it might have been. And what was really interesting too was, I didn't know there was such a wonderful drum culture here in Portland.
Right.
And so that was really amazing. And then one more quick story. I remember I went to a drum shop here to let them know what I was going to do. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to open up a little it was a little boutique, like a vintage and custom drum shop. I'm just going to have some really, super curated. And here I am thinking being cool to let them know what I'm doing. So the guy who I thought was the owner, he was actually the manager. He's all, look, I've lived in Portland my whole life. I've worked here for, dozens of years, and drummers here don't buy $300 ride cymbals.
Right.
They don't buy like fancy stuff. And little did he know that when he was whipping out his little like insecure pee-pee and like peeing all over my idea for a drum shop,
Yeah.
that I was all like going, man, we're going to crush it.
Right.
Because if this is their attitude, like this is going to be really great. Like people are going to love what we're doing. So that's essentially the seed, how Revival started.
Right.
And this is the craziest part. I don't know if a lot of people know this, because this is very seldom do I get to talk just about Revival, is that I meet Joe Plummer. We had done shows with Modest Mouse in the past, the Breeders have.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, oh, my God, that's great. You're moving to Portland. Scott McPherson lives here. I go, no, I don't know who that is. He goes, what? You don't know Scott? I go, no. He goes, oh, my God, you play with Elliott Smith. And, I go, oh, my God, he sounds like a cool guy. He goes, you guys got to meet. So I meet Scott, and he actually comes over to the space that I have, and I'm kind of setting it up roughly, and he's like, man, so nice to meet you. He goes, I would really love to do this with you. I go, what? I go, dude, I just met you. Like, that's crazy. I go, you can put stuff on consignment here. He goes, no, I really, really want to do this. I go, wow, I don't even know you, and he goes, but we have so many friends in common. And I go, well, I kind of know you, I guess, so I go, all right, let's just talk about it. So we kind of talked about it for like a week or so. And then I'm like, you know what, this guy's cool. I go, do you have any money? Like, can you like chip in anything? He goes, no, but I'll make all the signs. I'll make the store sign. I'll make some shelves if you have some ideas. I'm all like, you know what? I'm fucking really tired right now. This could actually work. If this is done, I go, so you're cool. If this doesn't work, you can just bail, and if this just gets weird, because it's probably not going to work out, but let's just try it. It was insane. So we literally met and kind of had a baby. Like that's the way we do it.
Right.
And I love it because he ended up, leaving about a year and a half after we started, maybe 2 years after we started, because he was still touring a lot. Revival wasn't making a ton of money, so it just kind of made sense. But he's one of my best friends till this day. I love what he does with tackle. He's so brilliant, and I love that we were able to survive. Our relationship.
Totally.
And so essentially that's how Revival started.
Wow.
It was just a couple of guys that really, really loved drums and just wanted a place to, nurture our community. And we were super lucky, man. Overnight we got, the Shins, Modest Mouse, Quasi. Portland completely embraced what we were doing, because of, I think, my playing history and Scott's playing history. And it just started to happen. And a funny story is I couldn't stock any of our big bass drums in the store. So if someone asked for one, I would say, I'll be right back, buy him a coffee from next door, lock the shop up, drive home, throw like 3 or 4 bass drums in the car, and bring them back over and go like, how are these cool? People loved it. They're like, this place is crazy.
Right.
I really miss those times, where we made flyers to go to shows and, hey, we're opening up a drum shop, and maybe some of your audience can look up what a flyer is, you know what I mean? Because
right.
Like, who
Totally.
does that? I mean, that's insane. And it was like, hey, we're doing this. And I was really fortunate because all the companies that I worked with got behind it, like Vader. I was like, hey, Jose's got a drum shop. And, the Breeders people got behind it. Like, hey, this is what Jose's up to. And it was really, really great. But with that said, it was a really big indication to the Breeders that I was, definitely getting out of that ship.
Mm-hmm.
my only regret, I would have done it sooner, because, and I'm so happy that my wife suggested that.
Yeah,
and,
right.
So, yeah, thank you for asking it. Like I said, these aren't short answers
No
because
problem.
there's so much. But I have to, thank Joe Plummer again. And from day one, man, we would do the funnest stuff. We had the freedom to do whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
We put on drum fairs, and we would have art shows. Like, we had an art show where, Kim did a needlepoint that said Revival on a pillowcase.
Mm-hmm.
That was up there. We had, like, it was like Wayne from, Flaming Lips had a painting up, and it was so much fun. And I think we still have that spirit,
Mm-hmm.
in us, where we feel like we can kind of do whatever we want. So,
right. Wow.
But yeah, so there's that huge answer.
No
Yeah,
problem.
I'm sorry, 45 minutes later. Sorry about that. But
Nah, I mean, that's 12 years. Yeah. It's reduced to that. Yeah.
yes, and then, I feel like then there was that little nucleus, and then, then after Scotty left, and then that's when Jake and Terry came in,
Mm-hmm.
almost, revival, 2.0, because then we had moved literally next door to a space that was, about 1,400 square feet.
Right.
Yeah. So we kind of slowly started to grow.
Mm-hmm. And so it's had essentially two locations, that first little 300 square foot place, and then now the place where it is, where I saw it and where what I know as Revival Drums.
No, the place that you saw, I think you said you were here 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically that was our third spot. So we had our little baby spot.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went next door and grew. So technically that was our second spot.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not like, and then our Ankeny spot was our third, and then now we're on Sherman, which is our fourth location.
Oh.
Yeah, tell me about it. Oh yeah, so that's that's been really incredible. So, and I know I just mentioned Jake Endicott and Kerry Ortiz. I can't celebrate those guys enough. Both of those guys have been so instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
Not only with the pandemic survival, but just in general. They're both so dedicated to Revival and to the drummers of the world and the gear.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe that I have a shop manager like Jake and a hacksaw specialist and like this multi-talented person like Kerry Ortiz. We really look after each other, and we look for each other's blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all different. And I know through this, there's been really trying times for me, and real moments of like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they've both been there, like family, and they are. It's pretty amazing.
Well, with the 4 different locations, was the impetus outgrowing those locations necessarily, or was there any other factors at play? I mean, I've spoken to drum store owners who when talking to the landlord, they said what they were going to do, only to then realize that there was complaints that they were hitting drums throughout the day to be able to test what they were trying to fix and or repair, et cetera, and then that became a problem. There's all sorts of stuff that can happen. So was it just kind of y'all outgrowing spaces and getting into another one, or what was going on with that?
No, not at all. I loved our second location. I could walk to the shop. I could ride my bike to the shop if I wanted.
Yeah.
From my house. What forced us out of both of the locations was greed. Essentially, them raising our rent to a point where we couldn't. Well, the second spot was raising our rent, just ridiculous. And I never asked this. I go, is that legal?
Right.
And they're like, yes. I'm all, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And when I would go into we were in great tenants here for 5 years. I actually recommended the 2 tenants that, that own the coffee shop and the record store.
Mm-hmm.
I helped bring them in. Their eyes just glazed over. It was unfortunate. So,
wow.
And then our third location, they redeveloped the building. So essentially, like, you guys got to go. And So, but there it is. That's what I do. If there's anything that I learned from this is I can totally move a drum shop and put up some reclaim and paint walls and I don't know. It's actually pretty fun. I know it sounds odd, initially it's not, but like I said, this whole thing, man, has been just kind of a lot of tests, and I'm just happy that we've been able to surpass. And every time it's been better. Like
right.
just like everything that happens in my life, I feel like where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. It always ends up making not only myself a better person, it really makes Revival that much better.
Right.
So, and the spot we're in now is literally perfect. It couldn't be any more perfect for us. It's shocking.
Awesome. When you first started, you were talking about kind of your own stock being sort of what was in the store. Did you have a particular interest with vintage drums leading into that, or did that develop sort of as a byproduct of having the shop, or has that always been an interest?
Oh yeah, I've loved vintage drums since I was in high school. I first saw a really great player named Brad Elvis who played in the Elvis Brothers. Mm-hmm. He would play a vintage Slingerland. Green Sparkle. And nice. And ever since I saw him play, and this was a sophomore in high school, probably around 88, 89, something like that, 88. Mm-hmm. My first vintage kit I bought in Evanston, Illinois, was a Black Diamond Pearl Slingerland.
Nice.
So, I had that kit forever. A friend of mine reminded me, he saw me play with Face to Face, and we're opening for the Reverend Horton Heat here in Portland, and I had that kit.
Awesome.
So, I always loved vintage drums, and and I had like Orange County Drums and Percussion make me a really cool kit back in the day, and it was like a copy of a Full Dress kit, and I think you could see that when I played on like Conan.
Oh, nice.
It was, I can't remember, but Big O 28. Yeah, so I would just kind of buy drums once in a while, but once I started touring with the Breeders and actually making some decent money, I went bananas, man. I would go in and like I said, I would ship stuff home, and it was like Christmas. And that was my thing. Like, I wasn't into partying. I didn't do drugs. You know what I mean? Like it was like, I would buy some records, but I would just go and I would just get up in the morning, go for a walk, and then just cruise over to the local drum shop and go crazy. And that's what really helped, with learning and, and creating all of these relationships. So I knew, a couple dozen collectors, when I opened Revival.
Right.
And they're just like, oh yeah, man, that totally makes sense. You're doing that. And that's the whole thing. I think that's part of it, why Revival has really worked, is one, the trust factor for sure. And that I was kind of like one of them. Like, I'm a drummer first. Mm-hmm. I've been through my musical battles, and, I've kind of, I feel like, done so much as a drummer with solo shows and, obviously touring and, session stuff. So it was really neat. I think, I wasn't someone that just loved vintage drums and started selling them out of my garage, and which I appreciate that. But I was just like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. We're going to start small and just see where this goes. Because I had no idea if this was even going to work. So, and the drums that I would have in there, because it was so little, like literally 95% of the stuff in there was just unbelievably bitching.
Yeah.
And I still do this. When I first get to the shop, I open the door and just see what it looks like to someone walking in. Yeah. And I'll just be like, wow, this is so cool. And that's what I remember. Scott McPherson said that to me. Just Jose, I wish you could walk in Revival for the first time, because it's like you're so used to it. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like this or that, and I really love that. And also too, the reason I think it really worked was, I love vintage drums, but I loved when I would go to Europe and go to, old vintage boutiques. So when I started Revival, I wasn't like going, oh, I'm going to set it up just like Pro Drum. I'm going to set it up just like Forks. I said, man, I have the freedom to do it any way that I want. So, oh yeah, we're going to have, although it's 350 square feet, including the bathroom, we're going to have a really cool bench in there so we could chill and talk. You know what I mean? I'm going to have amazing light fixtures. You know what I mean? I'm going to have, reclaimed, shelving. Really, that really wasn't happening. You were like, a lot of places were just, I think just generic shelving, but everything was so important to me because I wanted to create a place that I would want to stay in, and I would for, 7 hours a day, 7 days a week. I did that for like 5 years.
Right.
So, so it's beyond the drum, man. It's about the experience. It's about, you're coming to a place that actually gives a shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really, I think, part of the story also.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I kind of picked up on that experience when I was in there. Cause I mean, I would say, it's funny you mentioned the record store next door. I've kind of had a running joke that in my experience, people that work at record stores, at least most of the ones that I've been to throughout the years, tend to be some of the most miserable people I've ever come across. So, I always enjoy it when I can go to a music store that's, not like some of the bigger aforementioned ones, where you kind of just have some one-on-one time and pick some people's brains, and people are knowledgeable and all that. So it's the more intimate, cool experience. I certainly dig that for sure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I know that's been, a very important part of our value system and our principles. My first calls were, Pete Engelhart, Istanbul Cymbals, Greg Keplinger, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, I don't think that was a real common first maneuvers for a shop. That's how, how curated I wanted it to be. And another quick story. I have so many of these little stories, but they're fun.
No, go for it.
I had the Zildjian rep come in, and he's like, "Oh, this is great, new drum shop." And I was like, "Man, it'd be really cool to have, Istanbul and Zildjian." And because at that time I think technically I was still endorsed with Zildjian. And so, I was talking to the rep, and not the A&R rep, just like the sales rep for the Pacific Northwest. And I was like, hey, so this is what I want to do. I want to curate some of your Constantinople's, you know what I mean? I want to do your K line. I want to be very specific. He's all, oh no, you can't do that. You got to carry everything. I go, oh, actually, not only do I not have the budget for that, I don't have the room. I go, look at, I have 2 cymbal trees.
Yeah.
I go, can you talk with somebody? And he's like, no. I go, okay. I go, I guess we're not going to be a dealer. He goes, you're a drum shop. You have to be a Zildjian dealer. I go, actually, you know what? I don't. And this is where the indie in me comes. You know what I mean? This is where I go, I get a little bit like, oh, actually, you know what, man? I don't. Yeah. I'd rather invest in Istanbul at this point and whomever else. But yeah, I'm really bummed out. But for the record, since then, I mean, granted, it was probably another 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
They were like, dude, we'll do whatever you want. They will, like, whatever you want to do, we'll do it. And that's really beautiful. But that just kind of tells you, like, it's important to kind of not be bullied, you know what I mean? And kind of really stick to your guns, because ultimately it did work out for us.
Absolutely. Well, question on when you first opened and you were using some of your stock, did anything sell, snare, drum set, et cetera, that you wish you wouldn't have, that you wish you still had to this day?
Ooh, you know what? Yeah, I actually have a lot of those. But my mantra when I opened, I said the shop always comes first. I remember one cymbal I had found it in Jerusalem.
Whoa.
It was a 22-inch old A, and it sounded so incredible. So I remember the gentleman pulled it out of the bin that we had, and he's playing it, and it sounds so fucking good. And I'm all like, oh my God. I remember I'm doing it again. I literally have my fingers on my forehead right now because I'm going back to that moment. And he goes, this sounds great. I go, gosh, it really does. And he's all like, he actually goes, man, where did this come from? I go, actually, I found it in Jerusalem. He goes, man, I'm totally going to take it. I go, yes, yeah, and as you should. And I remember going, hey, can I play it one more time before you take it? And he laughed. He goes, this is my favorite drum shop in the whole world. So yeah, so there's that. And, you know, I mean, I've had some amazing, like, you know, like rolling bombers that came, you know, like, yeah, but, you know, they all sound great homes, you know what I mean? And,
Sure.
And I have a very small but mighty, you know, quote unquote collection.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, that ride cymbal definitely stands out. And there are other pieces, but I won't bore you with that. So to answer your question, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would have such an amazing collection if I was like, Mr. I'm going to keep everything.
Right.
And that's how we've been able to survive and have that trust with people.
Yeah, for sure. Gotcha. It's been like when I think about vintage drums, I feel like, you know, your Gretches and then, you know, 60s Ludwigs, for instance, with the 3-ply and then the re-rings and those have always kind of been sought after. But then sometimes there are trends, you know, like for instance, I was going to say I have a Vistalite kit. All I have is the bass drum because in moving out here, the moving company lost the 3 toms to it. So now I just have bass drum from my early 70s Vistalite kit. But I've seen like in the last 5 years, for instance, sort of a fascination and more people seeming to buy them and the price going up and this and that and the other. Has there been any particular drum, be it snare or drum set, where you've seen kind of a new interest outside of the sort of go-to, you know, like I said, early Gretsch and Ludwigs or Slingerlands, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a couple trends that's been happening for a little while. Price-wise, I think Temcos have gotten really, really expensive, you know, from what I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed this really big love for made in Japan drums, you know, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
So that's been really really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no doubt about it. And I see Tama and Yamaha coming back. You know, they're vintage. You know,
yes.
I see people and man, we've gotten these like monster drum kits where I'm just like, whoever brought this in, I have to fire them. You know? Yeah. Like, what are we going to do with this fucking 10-piece drum set?
Right.
And it will sell.
That's crazy.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuff that probably everybody knows. But that's been really interesting to see, like, the vintage Yamaha start to, like, click up in price and demand.
Yeah.
And also the Tama, which is great because they're both an incredible company. So it's fun to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I rewrapped a bass drum. It's a Yamaha. It's either the 8000 or 9000 series, and they're great drums. But I've realized in pulling off a wrap and rewrapping a kit and doing the inlays on the rims and everything, it was a nightmare. I've actually I've wrapped a kit that wasn't wrapped. I just had to sand it down ever so lightly and then just put the adhesive on it and put the new wraps on it. But man, yeah, undoing one and doing it is a whole nother nightmare to deal with.
Oh yeah.
But I still have that bass drum and it sounds killer. And my first kit, strangely enough, was kind of what you're talking about. It was one of the Tama Superstars from the early 80s, I believe. Just nice. the straight wood color. And that kit, that's one of those kits I honestly wish I still had. I literally sold it to a used car salesman. And the dude was such a pain in the ass when he came to my house. I was like, yes, just take the kit and get the fuck out the house. I'm tired of the car salesman shtick. Jesus, dude.
Oh.
So that asshole got my that guy got my.
That makes it worse, right?
Yeah, totally.
Oh.
If it was just like a kid or somebody that was like super psyched on it, I was like, this guy's probably just gonna like turn this around and go try to sell it somewhere else. You know, I don't think he really even cared about the kit. So that was that experience. But maybe one of these days I'll get another Tama Superstar kit. It's out there. So
that's funny. I just kind of trimmed my chair and I noticed my Downbeat Psychedelic Red. Drum kit that I have in here, and I had sold this to a local collector, and it literally was the only set, in all honesty, that I regretted selling. So it took me about 4 or 5 years to get it back. Because every year and a half, I would see him, I'd be like, "Hey, man, are you done with that Psychedelic Red yet?" And he's all like, "Nope, not yet." Yeah. So finally, I was able to get it back. So this will, that's because yeah, and some of the greatest drummers in the world have used this thing. And
Nice.
there's one of my favorite pictures of Ryder, my boy. He's behind it wearing a Chewbacca mask.
Nice.
You know, and I'm like, I got to get that kit back. I'm so glad that it stayed local, but it literally took me years to get it back. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
The Stoic Drummer, having read through it, and like I said, so many great quotes, mantras, and everything else. It's a great companion for anybody, drummers and musicians and creative types and everything. Honestly, obviously, it's geared fairly specifically to the drummers, but it's a great one. And there's so many great quotes. And there was a really funny one that I laughed out loud because it's so indicative of his playing. There's a Keith Moon quote in there where he says, "I suppose it's just animal instinct," and I thought that is hilarious. Because that fucking guy played like a wild animal if there ever was one. That is hilarious.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just the brilliance of Keith Moon in particular. And I think all of us, as drummers have that, in us, what I mean? Just that kind of, that savage beauty.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for, liking the book with Revival and with the Stoic Drummer and with my next book. These really are just kind of love letters, to drummers,
yeah,
and to our community, because I think a true love letter really embraces insight and understanding and compassion. And it's great because the Stoic Drummer really evolved out of really one of the hardest times that I had with the shop.
Right.
So to be able to fuse, Stoicism with, this ancient, philosophy with the art of drumming, it was, I had no idea that it would resonate with so many drummers all over the world.
Absolutely.
I'm still blown away from that. And like I said, and it to be, to come out of, of just part of my healing, and pain, it's cool to see it, give so much.
Absolutely. So I know we've talked about sort of all of the awesome aspects of the drum shop and the evolution of it and this and that and the other. But if you're a business owner and operating over the course of 4 different places, I imagine that it's not always the smooth sailing. So what have been some of the tougher times that you've experienced, I guess, over the course of the last 12 years?
Oh, man, great question. When I was still driving all over the country getting stuff, I was still we were really starting to pick up a ton of momentum, locally and, bands coming in. And I was starting to get really, really burnt out. And then we had an internal theft that happened, which I was completely devastated.
Oh, no.
It was really, really tough. And so I think because I was pretty burnt out and, coming from a weird place. And then that happened. I literally was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Yeah.
Cause I'm just so fried and it's kind of not fun. And when the theft happened, I really wanted to know why. And my biggest thing was just how did I fail you as a friend and a boss?
Yeah.
You know
right.
what I mean? And so, and thank goodness I had, Jake and Carrie, because Jake was like, look, Jose, you need to take a week off. You need to take a month. You need to take a year off. Go do it. Go get in the right headspace, because if you go down, this whole thing goes down.
Sure.
So, and when that happened, that's when I started to look into I need a tool. I need something to help me out. And that's when I discovered or rediscovered Stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, the book was born out of that. And the gentleman that did this to me, it's been really great to be able to forgive them. I never sacrificed them publicly because it would be no good for anyone, but actually thank them because of that. The Stoic Drummer came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's another one?
Well, how about your Instagram being stolen?
Oh yeah. Dude. Yeah. At this point, I'm just like, of course. Yeah. It's so, yeah. So I'm not at the shop every day. You know what I mean? I kind of bob in and out, almost like someone called me an executive chef. I don't know if they were maybe a compliment or a dig. I think more of a dig, but whatever. So Jake calls me up. He goes, "Hey man, did you change the Instagram password?" I go, "No, dude. No. Why would I do that?" He's like, "Okay, let me call you back." I go, "This is not good." I know Jake and I know his tone. And it ended up like someone in Turkey, totally hijacked our Instagram. And so it was completely gone. Yeah, man.
Crazy.
So it was completely gone, almost 50,000 followers. It was just one of those things. But listen to this. So there's a drummer that lived in Portland here about 6 years ago. Great guy. I made him a couple custom pieces for his rig.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up moving to San Francisco a while ago with his family. And he became this kind of, heavy at Facebook. And I get a DM from him, like maybe 2 days after, because we were getting nowhere with this.
Yeah.
And he goes, hey, man, I'm going to get your account back. Hang tight. Not even like I'm going to try. Let me see what I can do.
Right.
I'm all, I go, okay, cool, man. And then, within the next couple of hours, we had it back.
Whoa.
So, so there it is. Like our community, and how amazing. I don't know if you saw the outpouring of support.
Yeah, totally.
That we got through that. And again, it made us a better shop. You know what I mean? Like the theft made us a better shop. Granted, was my eyes welling up when we had to come up with a new system to watch every dime? Absolutely. Did I almost lose trust in everybody that I've ever known? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But my guys, Jake in particular, just stepped up and loved me like a brother, and just like, we got this. You know what I mean? Another drumming brother stepped up with the whole Instagram hack, and I got so many beautiful DMs and texts like going, man, whatever we can do to help you out, this totally sucks. Whatever we can do. It was really, really great.
Awesome.
Man, we are so fortunate to have this community.
Absolutely.
And I love it. Yeah, man. So, and you're a part of it, of course, and it's such a huge, there's so many branches. It's insane.
It's a big tree.
It's such a big tree.
Well, Jose, man, it was great talking to you, man, and sort of going through the years and the trials, tribulations, everything in between, and picking your brain about everything from vintage drums to your collection and all the different sort of fluctuating trends and whatnot and all that. So it was a fun conversation, man.
Wow. Well, I have to hail you again for putting up with me, because I like going weird places, and that's why it was a real treat. And I love talking with you. So thank you again for everything.
Right on, man. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. And definitely thanks to Jose for rapping. Definitely cool hearing the history of the shop over the course of the 12 years and from the origins of the breeders and collecting on tours and Pro Drum Hollywood and all that good stuff. Definitely a fun talk. Now I got to get out to Portland at some point and check out this new spot. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.